Welcome back. In this segment, what I want to do is talk about some exercises, very simple little exercises you can do over an exercise ball to help deal with any chronic low-grade lower back issues. Now, I'm not talking about the type of thing where you got pain into your buttocks or down the leg, numbness and tingling and so forth. That's a different story. But this kind of achiness that you get, that's just real low-grade achiness across the lower back, a lot of times it's just from deconditioning of the muscles. Can't control the spine correctly. You get a little sloppiness in the spine movement. It just gets irritated and then causes this irritation. So too many of us just sit way too much at work, or we're not getting enough exercise and movement to help to strengthen those muscles up. So these are some simple little things you can do, maybe 3 to 4 times a week. It only takes about 5 to 10 minutes to do them, so you can knock them out very quickly. And you just got to be consistent with it. And if you're consistent with it over a period of 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to notice a real difference in how you feel and the stability in there. Okay, obviously, if it's not going away, then you want to go see your chiropractor and get it checked to see if there's some other underlying problem that could be more complicated. So now the one thing that I really want to emphasize with this is that you see so many aerobics instructors when they do abdominal work, they grab a hold of the back of the head and they're doing this kind of stuff and sitting up. What they're doing, they're flattening out that neck curve. And you start to flatten out the neck curve. You see, when I talk about the neck curve, person's facing this way, you should have this normal arc to the curve in there. It should look like a reverse C, okay? And when you're pulling up too much on a repetitive basis, you can actually start to flatten this out as they're doing their sit-ups and pulling on the head. And over time, you repetitively do that, you can remold this into a loss of curve. And when you lose the curve in here, it tractions the spinal cord. Your spinal cord is obviously part of the nervous system, and it's what carries the messages that have regulatory processes throughout the entire body. And the brain sends the messages down through there. So when you flatten it out, the neuroscientists have shown that when you stress nerve tissue, you mess up the messages. If you mess up these messages, what do you think happens to whatever those nerves go to? Yeah, they don't function right. And you get dysfunction. Eventually they can deteriorate into sickness and disease and malfunction of body parts, and then you got some real health issues. So we want to try to protect that. So what are you going to do? Basically what you're going to do when you're on the ball doing your abdominal exercises and sitting up, you're going to not pull up the head, and I don't want you leading with the head either. You really need to just work the stomach muscles. So what you're going to do is you're laying back over this, you're going to focus on something back behind you so that you can't raise your head up, because once you start raising your head up, you lose sight of that. So you know whether you're raising it or not by focusing on and keeping your sight on something back behind you as you strengthen the stomach muscles up. And you don't have to come up real far, just some short little resistive motions is really all that needs to be done with that. So then the other thing that I want to talk about is that if this is like the exercise ball, the other one, you're going to be on your back for the first ones that we just talked about to strengthen up the front abdominal muscles, and then you're going to roll over on your stomach, and you're going to raise up to strengthen the lower back muscles. And the key to this is that when you're flexed over the ball, you want to raise up to neutral. So flexed to neutral, flex to neutral. What I don't want you doing at first is coming up and going into hyperextension and arching way back. Eventually you can do that, but initially you want to go real slow with these, strengthen everything up, because if you got some underlying disc issues or some other joint related misalignments in there, you may actually start to irritate them and actually make your problem worse. So, and if you do feel things getting worse, you need to go get checked out and see what the underlying cause of it is, get it adjusted and get it back to functioning the way it should, so it can handle that motion. So just short little resistive motions, that's really all you need to do, and help to strengthen up those muscles, particularly if you're sitting a lot or you're doing a lot of repetitive bending and twisting and so forth at work or in activities and so forth. So let's jump into the exercises and take a look at them. Okay, so let's start into the exercises. First we'll do the abdominal exercises by laying on your back, and then we'll flip over on your stomach and do the lower back exercises. Now, some people have a really hard time with the ball moving around, so what I tell them to do is sit on the ball, get a nice wide stance with your legs, maybe 3 or 4 feet apart, because if they're too close together, now you don't have any control of you sliding to the sides. And if necessary, you can put chairs on the side to kind of hold yourself as you get down into position. So what you're going to do is just get that nice wide stance and then just roll down to where you're laying back over the ball, And as I said earlier, you don't want to be pulling your head up. You want to focus on something back behind you, and you can do whatever you want to with the arms. Across the chest, you can put them back behind the head. You can get a towel and sling the neck if you want to, but just don't pull up. So keep the head back, and it's just short little resistive motions like this. That's all you need to do. And you can do as many of these as you want. If you want to work what are called the oblique muscles that go in two different directions, you can come up and add a little twist to it. So it'd be like this. Twisting left, twisting right. And you can do as many of those abdominal exercises as you want. Now the one thing about those, or either one of these, if you're starting to do enough of them where you're starting to what we call burn the muscle, where it feels like it's kind of burning as you're coming up, particularly if you do a whole lot of stomach exercises, is that you need to make sure you've got at least a day in between, so you don't work in consecutive days, because the muscles need a day or so to rest so you don't start to break the muscle tissue down. But that's typically going to happen if you're doing a whole lot of abdominal stomach exercises. So then we're going to come back off the ball, roll over on your stomach, and on this one, you're going to get to where you get down into a flexed position. And you're just going to raise up to neutral, flexed to neutral, flexed to neutral. Remember, don't hyperextend at first. You don't want to be jamming anything up in your lower back and causing irritation. Some people, when they start to do these, start to tilt up. So you may need to lock your feet up underneath a couch or a coffee table, or have a spouse or a significant other hold your legs down, or your kids or whatever. So what you're going to do then, after a while, when you start to do these, if it feels like you're not getting enough resistance, you can actually add weight in with some hand weights, or you can grab a couple of big books like a dictionary or something like that, and just add some more resistance to the exercise. Now, what you're going to typically do is do 2 sets of whatever you can do. If you can only do 4 or 5 at first, do 4 or 5, give a short little relaxation time, and then come back and do a second set of whatever you just did. But you want to work up to doing 2 sets of 20s about 3 to 4 times a week. And again, if you start working them to where you feel like that muscle's burning, you definitely need to let a day go in between doing these exercises. So very simple. You just got to be consistent with them, and over time you'll notice a real change insofar as how your lower back is able to handle your daily activities, and you'll be a lot more comfortable, in less pain, and be happier and healthier. How about that? Okay, well, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next segment.